Because of the many world events occurring at this time, we have been specifically asked to speak to you concerning prophecy and prophecies for those occurrences that are coming as a result of the changes taking place at this time. First, it must be said that prophecy is not a fait accompli. Prophecy is given not because something must happen, but prophecies or predictions are given to the public because it is possible to interact with them and to make changes for the benefit of humanity and for the benefit of the individual self. It would be worthless if prophecy only told you what must happen. Prophecy rather tells you what is likely to happen and what you can do to change it. And the world right now is in a state of great flux because it is transitioning from one astrological period to another astrological period. You've heard people talk about this for many years. And it is often the opinion of people, oh, this is happening because the transition will take place in an instant. But these transitions are slow. When an age actually changes, it does not change overnight. It changes over a prolonged period of time. 50, 100, 150, 200 years from the time it begins to change to the time that it is fully manifest as an age. And then you will stay in that age until the change again comes. So when we speak of prophecy, we are speaking of potential for good things as well as bad things. So many people think prophecy is doom and gloom, but prophecy tells you the good things that are coming and how to best get to those good things and how to avoid the bad things that often come with change, most especially when people try to resist change or move backward or hold on to the past. Now, another thing you should be aware of when we speak of prophecy, we are not speaking of holy text or religious text. We are speaking of true predictions of the future, for true prophecies. There live amongst you many oracles of different qualities, but their quantity is great. And some of them have the ability because it is a divine gift. Some of them have the ability because they study a particular field and they have the common sense to know what is coming due to mankind's actions within that particular field. And many of your science fiction writers, your artists, your authors have the gift. They are in touch, they are intuitive, and they bring these things to you in a way that the populace can understand. And often they do not even realize how truly prophetic their words are, how prophetic their thoughts are. They just tap into something, carry it forward with common sense thinking, oh, this would be really nifty if we could do this, not realizing, yes, humanity can do almost anything it sets its mind to. In fact, the very essence of writing that these oracles put forth often create the future because they make people think and see and dream, and then they act, and the actions create, and the creations bring manifestation into being. Now, it is also important to realize that we are not promoting or wishing you to follow any particular religion. We tell each individual, follow your heart, follow your faith, follow that which is predominant in your society, but also realize there is a difference between religion and spirituality. The spirituality that underlies or underpins all religions is a deep mysticism. But religions are man's way of understanding and coping. Often it is their way of explaining that which is. It is a way of comforting and a way of trying to give a comprehension to those who cannot comprehend beyond what they can see and feel and know. Yet, in truth, the divine can only be known through experience. So, religion has this double edge of allowing people to find a path where they can begin to become spiritual, and the opposite side of such where it pulls people into a solidified format that really has nothing to do with the divine, but everything to do with holding on to the present, forgetting the fact that the divine, that which some of you would call God, is evolutionary, just as the world is evolutionary, just as humanity is evolutionary, so the divine is evolutionary. World upon world, all evolve, all changes. Change is the only thing that is consistent. Nothing is permanent. Nothing is permanent. All things are changing. So the danger then becomes when you speak of prophecies, suddenly you have religions that use these prophecies and they solidify them and they twist them and use them for their own purposes, sometimes creating self-fulfilling prophecies where such could have been avoided. You will see people pushing as if they believe they must have an Armageddon. What do they want to create this? Because there is a prophecy somewhere? Or is it possible that this was speaking of something totally different? But yet religion becomes solidified, and then it becomes an excuse for those who are in leadership. All religions do this. It is not a singular religion. You will see when there are wars, people will use religion to justify their war, and they will use God as a way of justifying their actions. So religion ceases to become spiritual and becomes very, very political. Religion is the driver of most politics. And for those people who would say, oh, we do not have religion in politics, for those people, we would say to you, that is because politics has become your religion. You then have politics and religion. And it is the same difference. When they weld, they are one. When married, they are dangerous. And it has been the desire of the ruling class to use this as a means of control and manipulation since the beginning of time. It was done by the pharaohs of Egypt. It was done by the Roman emperors who proclaimed themselves gods. It was done by the Holy Roman Empire as it morphed into the church, which then ruled with an iron hand. And it has continued to be so ever since, and will always continue to be so, because religious people are not necessarily spiritual people. And often when spiritual people are religious and they get too much power, they become victims of that power, and they, in order to maintain the status quo, to maintain the religion, lose the spirituality, the humanity, the love for the only true religion. The only true religion is love. Hear that and hear it clearly. Everything else is politics. Now, with all of that said, let's look at what is going on today. For there is a great deal occurring. There is war, and there is change. Part of this is because people are trying to hold on to old ways. You hear calls like, "Make America Great Again." It has always been, it simply is. You cannot make something what it was. A river never flows backward. A river only flows forward. It is always changing. And even if it flows backward, it folds over on itself and is entirely different from what it was. And you see other regimes throughout the world also trying to hold on to the past, trying to hold on to religions of the past. You see kingdoms. Take, for example, Great Britain, still trying to hold on to the idea that it is a church state with the Anglican Church. What is it truly? Look at some of the states that claim to be ruled by Islamic rule. They would claim that they're trying to have that which occurred hundreds of years ago when Islam expanded, and actually was tolerant. But you cannot have this through the force that people try to use today to make the past be present in the now or the future. The past simply is gone. And religions, Hinduism, Buddhism, if you wish to call that philosophy a religion, which it is not, Christianity, Islam, the Jewish faith, they are all evolving, they're all changing. They do not stay the same from day to day, from year to year, from season to season, from decade to decade, from century to century. You take a Christian from the first or second century and introduce them to a Christian of today, and they would not even recognize that you were of the same faith. That is the way that it is. Faiths evolve, they change. So, with all of that being said, and we say it for the specific reason of understanding that those who are looking to make changes are using religion as an excuse. In multiple countries, this occurs. You'll see it even in countries that you're not thinking of as being religious countries, yet they are Christian or they are Islamic, and they're persecuting people for their sexuality or their sexual orientation. Was there a practical purpose for this ever? Yes, of course. But not one that you would normally think of as being religious. It was a simple fact that countries needed to grow, states needed to grow. And even now, we will tell you states need to grow, countries need to grow. If you look out over the world, here comes your first prophecy. You're going to see a huge economic crisis coming. Why is that crisis coming? Because populations are aging. And on top of populations aging, countries are afraid of each other to such an extent that they are trying to limit migration from one country to another. Yet many of the countries need immigrants, desperately need immigrants, because their population growth is not enough to sustain their economic viability. It is a fact that we would tell you that more adult diapers are being sold in Japan right now than are baby diapers. You say, oh, how is that relevant? Prophecy, prophecy, prophecy. It is relevant because a country has to have enough youth, enough workers, enough growth, enough vigor, or it will have a severe economic crisis when the population ages out to such an extent that it cannot support its people. And then the governments falter, and as a result of being unable to provide the financial needs, what happens? Revolt, revolution. And of course, all of the countries have another issue that ties into this prophecy. What is it? It is the fact that wealth is not evenly distributed. The truth of the matter is that very few people hold most of the wealth in most of the countries of the world. while others go hungry, while others are ill and cannot afford medicines. Plush hotels filled with the most wonderful treats. And outside that hotel, cardboard shanty towns and starving children. This is a way of humanity. And the result is that there will be worldwide economic collapse because mankind is bringing it on itself. And if there was a little bit of political will and a few very wealthy people weren't so selfish, it could be avoided. So, prophecy, yes. Supreme economic collapse. Oh, and we weren't even looking at the wars of today or the problems that you're having with oil or your environment. We're just looking at what's going to happen in 20, 30, 40, 50 years for different countries if they do not change their current course. Even if everything is good, even if all war is avoided, this will occur unless the current path is changed and the governments actually begin to function, to work for the people, to work providing that which is needed for a decent survival. Now, there are other issues, and you surely realize that because boundaries have changed even within your lifetime. How young are you, or you, or you? If you are listening, you have been alive long enough to have seen at least one boundary change. National boundaries change continually. And those boundaries in the African nations and in the Middle East and in Europe have been in a constant state of flux for thousands of years. And, well, if you want to come to the Americas and look, those boundaries, if you go back to the indigenous, yes, they were constantly in change as well. And if you come forward, oh, they have changed. Just think, Alaska is now a state. Mexico used to extend into what is now the southern United States. Borders in the South American and the Pan American countries have changed. Borders change. State borders have changed within the Americas, or in the United States, should we say. And within those states, county lines and county borders have changed. And towns, they have changed their lines at times to include a different business for tax reasons or to be able to make money off of them. Borders constantly change. So, with that said, now you realize when we tell you that there will be a change of borders, partially due to the wars that are occurring currently. Yes, in Ukraine. Yes, in Iran. The borders of the European countries will change somewhat too. And we told you long ago that a union of the European countries would become a very strong world influencing bloc of nations. But it will not be all of what you now consider the European Union. In fact, some of those states will undoubtedly return to the Russian Empire, and we will call it an empire, even if that's not the optimal word to describe what some would want to pretend is a democracy. But things are changing, and the current world events are putting in place things that will cause greater changes. Now, you may think that these changes are absolute, but we would tell you, no, they don't have to be absolute. They don't have to be. But as you are moving forward right now, there are certain things that will certainly occur because humanity is so dependent on oil. There is this great existential crisis for the environment. So now you would look and you'd say, oh, he's going to start talking environment, is he? And we would say to you, wait a minute. See, you're setting the stage with these wars, with these terrible economic situations you're bringing into existence, with the shortages of oil, for there to be real impetus to move to alternative sources of fuel. And while we've told you many times it would be good to move forward to natural gas so you could wean yourself from oil and have time to move to other sources, we will tell you now that you are creating an environment in which oil becomes less beneficial for most people. And this means you need alternate forms of power, alternate sources of energy, alternate ways to power your vehicles, to heat your homes, to do all of those things you enjoy doing. And what will it be? Will it be electric? Well, electric is good, but have you stopped to think how much of your electric comes from coal and oil and gas? So this means that by creating this very war, those who are thinking they are going to save the oil industries are actually setting in motion that which will promote alternate forms of energy. Electrostatic energy manifested from the atmosphere, turbines run by water, wind. There are various sources of energy, solar, that will be tapped and brought into use more and more. And this will provide you with greater ability to use your multiple electrical inventions because you're coming into the age of electricity. It is an age of ethereal electricity. It is an age of magnetism, and it is an age in which just good old-fashioned electricity shall abound. Your use of that in the past 100 years plus have just been the beginning. That was the beginning of your entering into the electrical age. But what you will learn and what you will create with magnetic fields is a huge deal. And the various sources of energy will make this so available that it will become commonplace for things that you don't even conceive of now. For example, let us speak of one very powerful weapon, one which you already have developed, which is the rail gun, which, quite frankly, could be put on ships at this moment. And you could generate enough with the nuclear energy used to drive those ships, enough electricity to fire metal off of the rail guns at such speed that it is virtually melting as it travels through the air, and the explosion that it would make when it hits is incredible. But that is not the end of this, for the truth of the matter is that it would eventually become so powerful that it could replace all of your expensive rockets and munitions that you're firing, and would be able to fire at such speeds that it could actually, with a little computer adjustment to lead, take them out. When something is shot at you, you would be able to shoot, even though it is not a guided or censored thing, because you would be able to computer move, it would travel so fast that it could not be adjusted for by an incoming missile. So you think, oh, well, this is incredible. Why is it not in greater use? But look, you're coming into an electrical age, an age when magnetism and electric will make things so much more powerful that have handheld weapons with magnetics all of a sudden becomes possible. So you're no longer looking at huge nuclear weapons driven from a ship, but something that someone carries with a small backpack. Oh my, oh my. Your future has a destructive side, but it also has a positive side, because what powers that and what powers the potentials for war also powers the unlimited ability to build, to communicate, to live in a virtual utopian world where travel is fast, efficient, and non-polluting, where homes are heated and lighted without damaging the environment, and where people can communicate, and we say communicate, worldwide without issues. And you say, oh, well, we can do that now. We have the internet, and you have a serious mess of the past kind of built up around you. You have space junk floating all around your world that you're going to have to clean up. And by the way, that is another thing to realize. It will be done because it has to be done. So you will be sending basically large sweepers, if you wish to call it that. They will be magnetic units sent to orbit in the orbits of multiple dead satellites and collect all the garbage and trash that you've sent into space, so you can bring it back to Earth and reuse it in a sensible way. So there is another thing that hopefully you'll have the common sense to do before the satellites start crashing into each other and setting off their own little disastrous events. Now, let us speak very directly of what is going on right at this moment. For you see nations that seem to be imploding, and we will look at Iran as an example, know that they do have the capacity for terrorist action and that there is danger even in the United States of America, but it is not limited to the United States of America. It is also something that is focused on Middle Eastern countries as well as European countries. It is not focused on Asian countries and not focused on Russia. But they will certainly make attempts to create terror. And the result of that will be something we have told you before. It will cause enough mayhem that terrorism will actually then become obsolete. People will no longer strike at humans as a form of terrorism. Rather, they will begin to strike at monuments and buildings that are empty as a form of making a political statement. Why? Because, as we have said in the past, terrorism against humans will receive such a harsh response as it is starting to receive now, that no one will want to continue terrorism. It will become antiquated because people realize that if they use it, they or possibly their whole nation will be totally and completely destroyed. We have told you this before. We have written this. It is in the prophecies that we have given to oh so many. So that is surely a benefit that may occur. Ultimately, that terrorism will end. But look at what we said. Prophecy does not have to occur. So we are telling you this doesn't have to occur either. All that has to happen is for people to understand and reach out a hand of understanding. This is not occurring because people are so different. This is occurring because nations, leaders, people with power have something to lose. They want to maintain a status quo. And this is true not in one country, but in all of the countries. So that is not a good thing. But yet we tell you now, moving forward, that as a result of this war, the European Union will condense to a smaller body that is very strong. It will not happen immediately. It will not happen in the next 5 days. It will not happen in the next couple of years, but it will happen. And it will become a 10-nation union and a very, very formidable world power. The satellite countries that have been around Russia may again look to Russia because Russia can offer resources and validation and protection. as the world changes and as political alliances change. For you can surely see now that political alliances are changing. And we have told you before, in the United States of America, world position may be lost to some extent, but the living capacity of people within the country, the financial capacity within the country will remain fairly stable. It is only the buying power outside of the country that will weaken. There again, you have what is occurring. We will tell you also that as a result of what is going on with the oil at this moment, not only will alternate energy sources be needed, but it will be necessary, at least temporarily, for the United States of America, for the European countries, to find a way to safely bring their nuclear power plants back online. And they will. There you go. That's not a maybe. That is an absolute. There will be no choice because of the shortage of oil that will be created. Now you're saying, oh, but there claims that there are plenty of oil fields to be used, and we're not telling you all the oil will be blown up or all the oil will be destroyed or all the oil will become inaccessible. But the temporary stop all of a sudden makes people realize that they are vulnerable. And countries don't want to be vulnerable. They want to be secure. The people in the countries want to be secure, and politicians want to make sure that they are secure. So, for that reason, nuclear power will become an absolute necessity. So, here you have several changes taking place, and within all of this, you have now seen that the United States seems to be intentionally isolating itself. But that isolation actually is something that has been underway for a little while. Remember, when the First World War occurred, it was followed by a Second World War because Germany was terribly oppressed as a result of the First War. The Second War decimated so much of the European areas and other areas where there were fights that shouldn't have really existed, but there were more fights than just in Europe. But areas were decimated, and it was necessary that they be rebuilt. The United States, which was rich in resources, sacrificed a lot. It thought, well, we will build a safe world, and in turn, we will prosper. What most in the countries that were damaged and rebuilt don't realize is that those wealthy Americans were mostly living in poverty at the time they rebuilt Europe. Oh, sure, people were coming from Italy and Spain and all other countries to the United States of America because it was the land of prosperity, or at least the land of opportunity, because it really wasn't a land of true prosperity, but it was a land of opportunity. But there was also poverty. Children were hungry. Adults lived in poverty. Most of the people did not have as much as was being given to the countries to rebuild themselves. Americans rebuilt museums. Americans rebuilt all kinds of things overseas. And they did not ask for anything great in return. But eventually, you leave a public to live in poverty long enough, and the Americans did, it becomes an issue for the politicians of that country. And throughout the countries that were rebuilt, they became dependent. They did not just say, oh, we'll take care of ourselves now. They started to depend on the US aid, and the US was happy to give it because it created political allies. But it was also at an expense at home, and it was at a cost to the people that finally reached a point that it became almost impossible for it to be sustained. And that is why that the current changes were so easy for the current president to make, because they were actually something wanted and needed by the people to even live close to the same status as those that they had helped in the past. So now let's move this to the prophecy side of this. This means that America is becoming isolationist. America will politically try to reclaim some of what it has given, and you're seeing that happen. Whether it's right or wrong is irrelevant. We are not giving you anything moral. We are telling you what is happening. We are telling you the practical reasons why things have happened, and we are working to give you the ideas that will help you in the future hopefully live in greater peace and harmony. So, you are not bound by any prophecy that is given, but we are telling you now that you're going to move ahead in this electrical age to find the power of color, the power of sound, the power of magnetics and resonance, in the capacity to heal. And this will eliminate the need for many of the primitive medications that you now use. With all of this being said, and with all of the positive things we've given you and all of the negative, and we have given lots of negatives, we leave you with this one thought as far as prophecy is concerned. Prophecy is for your benefit, your personal benefit. Nations can benefit from it, but you as an individual can use it and benefit from it. You say, how is that? And we would say, just look at all of the things we have told you. Does it give you an idea for invention? Does it give you a hint as to where you might invest? Does it give you solace? Does it give you potential for how you might want to build your home or change the way you are living? Prophecy is for you as an individual, not just to say, oh, this global change will occur, but to say, you as a person can take advantage of it.